Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. I hope you guys are all having a great day so far. So today we're finally back at it again, creating these modern houses that I enjoy building, and it's been such a while since I've created a huge one on this scale, so it's kind of like great to be back to creating these builds for you guys again. And we're actually building a very nice like family home that I feel like is like a perfect size in San Sequoia on a 50 by 40 lot, which is honestly grown to be one of my favorite lots in comparison to the 64 by 64 lot that I always build on like every single time when I'm creating these huge builds. But honestly, I just really enjoy creating it on like these smaller lots because I feel like it makes a lot more sense for like to have like a family home for this size, especially with like how huge this house already is on its own. I believe it's about like 4 bedrooms and it has a few en-suites here and there, and we do also have like standalone bathrooms on the second floor as well as like on the first floor. But yeah, I just feel like there's a ton of space to like expand and do whatever you want with this build if you guys want to. And we're starting off immediately with like creating an interesting like foundation for the entire home. So I wanted to use a lot of terrain tools as well as like platforming and just like things that would like levitate the space and like the entire house, just to make it look a bit more interesting, because I feel like we're already on such like a nice lot, so it's like already on a waterfront lot, and I just wanted to make it look as realistic and interesting as possible, because I feel like you wouldn't really have a house that looks out towards like the ocean on a really flat lot. So I kind of just wanted to replicate something like that and just use a lot of terrain tooling. And I was kind of like testing out the terrain tool and how I wanted to do it prior to recording, which is why I immediately did it however I wanted to, if that makes sense. And I was just trying to find like the perfect level so that you can add stairs on it, as well as so it can like match onto the floor tiling that I put at the front of the house. And right now it might look a bit too busy and it might look a bit too full in terms of how much flooring I've used at the front of the home, but that all does end up changing eventually, as you guys have already seen from the start of the video. But yeah, we're whizzing past most of the like exterior so far, as well as like all the roofing, mainly because I did skip a lot of the roofing because I just felt like it wasn't really that interesting to watch, to be honest. But yeah, I really enjoyed like building this, mainly because the exterior has such an interesting shape to it, as well as like I utilized so many like half-walled colors. So some parts of the like first floor is a different color in comparison to like the top floor, and I just felt like that really made the house stand out and make it look a lot more interesting than my usual builds, because I didn't really use a lot of wooden textures or anything on this build. I used a lot more stone, concrete, rather than those like normal wood textures that I usually like using. And I feel like it pretty much turned out like interesting and like different than what I usually build, in my opinion. And yeah, I'm just like trying to find some nice windows I feel like that would work well with this house. I honestly always end up using these small windows. I believe it came from Snowy Escape, I'm not 100% sure, or was it, I'm not 100% sure where they came from, but I pretty much use those throughout like the entire home. And we also use a bunch of the greenhouse haven kits for the first floor, and I just really like the way those windows look, mainly because of how it's parted. I wish it came in like a short wall height as well. I mean, not wall height, but I wish the window just came in like a shorter version, like the ones on the second floor, because I just feel like that would look so nice if we had some sort of like division between the glass rather than it being like full clear glass, if that makes sense. And I kind of mimic the same design for the back garden as well, so we have pretty much like the same shape and design, as well as like for the window placement for the back garden area as well. And I wanted to incorporate a very nice like big swimming pool that sort of had like this like infinity pool edge sort of look, but it wasn't really working out with how I was planning out with like the terrain and the pool trim that I was using, which is the one that came with the new Love Struck expansion pack. But it just wasn't working out, so I just got rid of that and just made it like a regular swimming pool. And I was having issues with placing some floor tiles below the pool, so I just kind of like moved it and then placed it back, and that sort of like worked, and that helped me with overcoming the issue of not being able to place floor tiles below the pool. And as you guys can see at the front of the home, we have a lot of floor tiling going on right now, especially with like these black pebbles, which I feel like were a little bit too much. Like it was just a bit too dark in my opinion, and it was just like taking all of the attention off of the entire home. So I actually went back and like tried to minimize how much I used of it and tried to use it in a bit more like responsible way. And I wanted to use a really tall fence for this build, mainly because like it kind of like makes sense for these big houses to have like these big like private fence for the back gardens, or even like around the area of the entire home. But I didn't want to ruin the ocean view, so instead I used these like really short white walls, which I feel like looked a lot more cleaner, and I feel like I preferred it a lot more anyway. And if you guys couldn't tell, the main color scheme for this entire home is pretty much like this black and white theme with a few like hints of like pastel sort of colors, so we have a lot of like light blues, yellows and oranges throughout like the entire home, which you guys would see. And I really actually enjoyed building this outdoor garden area because I was trying to make it look interesting. So I placed this nice dining table on a platform just to like make it look a bit more interesting rather than keeping it on like a flat ground. And I just added some nice outdoor seating area as well as like some nice sun lounges, but I didn't really overdo the sun lounges, so I only placed like a few that I felt looked decent rather than adding too many that would make the garden look as cluttered as I usually do like doing. But I kind of wanted to keep it nice and clean for like looked a lot better. But yeah, moving on to the interior, I actually skipped creating the floor plan and stuff because that was just like very time consuming. I didn't want you guys to see all of that. But yeah, we're starting off with the kitchen, and initially I was going to go for a nice like black themed kitchen because the walls were going to be like a nice white color, and then it will contrast with like the cabinetry and stuff. But then as I was building and going through the entire kitchen process, I changed my mind completely and I went with like a nice cream sort of like whitish color. And we have such an interesting shape here. So far it was sort of like a T shape, and now it's sort of like an L shape now. But we have like some sort of like secret butler's kitchen sort of situation, but I don't have a oven or anything in there. It's just like the fridges and stuff, which I thought looked more interesting than keeping it out in the open with like the rest of the cabinetry, because I would want the fridge to look hidden inside of the cabinets, but you can't really do that. So instead I just placed the fridges in like the pantry room sort of situation. And yeah, it just looks a bit more cleaner, to be honest. And I kind of like the way this looks because the kitchen looks a lot more seamless. And we just have like this very nice island counter in the middle of the entire space, which I feel looks so nice and clean, especially with like that nice white color swatch, which I don't really use a lot of the plain white color swatch because I feel like it looks a bit bland. But I feel like with the orange texture of the flooring, I feel like it looks really good in my opinion, so I just kept it like that. And in my mind I really wanted to have some sort of like coffee station, so there was this like small little gap on one of the sides of the kitchen and I just utilized it as like a coffee station. And then I ended up changing that because I wanted to add like a bathroom in there, which you guys would see later on in the video. But towards the right hand side of the kitchen we have a nice like small office space. Initially I wanted to create this office space next to the actual like main front door, but unfortunately I couldn't really do that because there wasn't enough space, or at least like it was just dividing up the space a little bit too much and I didn't want that. So yeah, just to keep it more open and stuff, I created this nice simple office space off to the side of the kitchen, which I really like the end result of it, to be honest. And I also utilized the new like snake skin wall texture that came from the Love Struck expansion pack, which I really enjoy using. I feel like it's just like a really nice wallpaper texture to use in your houses, especially because it just adds like something new and interesting, especially since we don't really have a texture like that in the game. But yeah, I'm really happy with how this office turned out. It's just like really nice, especially with how the desk is overlooking the huge windows that like outlook towards the front of the actual like home. And yeah, I just really like the way that looked. And we also have a very open designed sort of living space, so I didn't want to keep it in like a closed room. Initially I sort of cut this room into like a small little box to create this living room area, but then it just wasn't looking as interesting as I wanted it to be. And especially with how I was keeping everything with like an open floor plan theme, I wanted to keep this also very open floor planned. And I also created this custom and unique sort of like coffee table by using the slabs that came from Spa Day, which I really do like using. If you have watched previous videos of mine, you would probably see that I kind of like utilize that trick all the time, which I just really like doing because I feel like it just looks really modern and interesting. But yeah, I guess this house is sort of like a modern farmhouse, if you want to call it that. But to me, I just feel like it's just like a generic modern family home. At least that's like the way that I look at it, especially since there's not really a lot of wood incorporated in this entire home. But yeah, I just use a bunch of spotlights here and there that I thought would look appropriate. I didn't want to use it randomly, so I did obviously go back. As you guys can see, like even on the dining table area, I changed the spotlights to be like the pendant lights that hang down from the ceiling, which I thought look a lot more interesting than having spotlights everywhere, especially if you want to go take like screenshots and stuff like that. And this center area of the actual home where the front door is looked relatively empty, and I didn't want to create any rooms or anything in front of it because I really liked how you can go from the front of the house straight to the back garden, like you can see immediately to the back garden. I thought that looked really interesting, so I didn't want to ruin that. So instead I just sort of added like some like formal sitting area in the middle of the home, which I thought looked quite nice, and it kind of filled up the space pretty well in my opinion. And I used one of my favorite coffee tables that came from Dream Home Decorator because they just work so well with like any house that you make pretty much. And with their simple boxy small design, it just works really well in any home, to be honest. And I really liked how the colors actually match with the pillows that were on the sofas as well. So yeah, it was just kind of convenient. And I went around and added some nice planters and greenery here and there just to make the house look a bit more lively, especially with like that concrete wall that we have for the garden door area. I also added one of those long thin tables towards the front of the home, as well as like a bowl on top of it to sort of like resemble one of those like where you throw your keys in, or like some sort of like convenient way to like store something quickly, if that makes sense. And we're also moving on to one of the bedrooms, which is actually on the first floor, so it's kind of just like off to the side of the living room. And it was a relatively huge room. It's sort of like a T shape where I divided like the end of like the T into like its own bathroom, which I'll talk about later on in the video. But because the room was so big, I actually divided it into its own like sort of like walk-in closet sort of situation, just by like adding some walls on either side of the actual like closet, which I thought looked really interesting. I really wanted to use this archway that came from the Love Struck expansion pack. However, it just doesn't come in another wall height, so it just looked a bit weird, especially with like having medium wall heights on the first floor. So yeah, it just didn't really look that interesting in my opinion, and it looked a bit too small for that area. And we have a double sink sort of situation for this bathroom, mainly because the bathroom is just really huge and I didn't want to just like add a singular one that would look a bit too small here. And we also have a doorway that actually leads to the garden, which I feel like if you guys don't like that, you guys can 100% get rid of that, no problem. But I just feel like because it's towards the end of like the actual home and it's kind of like in its own like place, it's not really like stuck out or like in the center of the actual garden. So I don't really mind having a huge door like that that leads to the garden. In real life, it will most likely be locked most of the time anyway, so I just didn't really find it a big deal to remove it. I just thought it would be an interesting thing to add to that bathroom. But yeah, moving on to the second floor, we're actually going on to another bedroom immediately, and I would imagine this as a typical like teenage bedroom if you were to utilize it as that. I would obviously add a lot more decorations if I was you and if I was planning to play in this specific build, mainly because I like to keep it bland, because I don't know what kind of family would be moving into this build, so I wouldn't want to decorate it in like a masculine or feminine theme. If I'm just trying to portray it in like a very generic view so that it's like neutral and it could be used by whatever sim you want to move into this build, if that makes sense. So yeah, I just went with like my favorite general color schemes, which is like this like black and white, or these like dark wood tones, or even light wood tones. I really like utilizing that in bedrooms, mainly because a lot of bedrooms in real life are made of wood anyway, especially like the furniture around it. So it kind of just like makes sense to have these like nice wooden features throughout like the entire bedroom. And I actually went back and added some stairway details because I actually forgot to add the railing and stuff like that, so I just went back to add that. And we also have a very small like wide room, and I didn't know what to do with it really, so instead I just turned it into like a small gym area. It's kind of thin and narrow, but I tried to fit as much of the activity as possible. And we also have those double French doors, as you guys saw, that lead towards like the balcony on the second floor, which is accessible by anyone. Initially I wanted to sort of make it like its own master bedroom access towards there, but unfortunately I couldn't do that because it was sort of like in the center of the house. But yeah, this is actually the master bedroom. Right now I believe we're looking at the bathroom of that master bedroom. This is kind of like the ensuite of it, so they have quite a small bathroom, but then again it's kind of like understandable considering the fact that it is an ensuite. And I sort of utilized that luxurious bed to sort of like signify that it is the master bedroom. And I also included a double door to this bedroom because I just feel like a lot of these modern houses, especially in America, like those LA homes, they always have double doors that lead towards the master bedroom. Don't know if that's like quite a common thing, but when I watch like tours and stuff like that, I always see stuff like that. So I kind of want to like replicate it in the game as well. And this bedroom also has its own walk-in wardrobe sort of situation, because I just didn't know what to do with like this small room, and I didn't want to make it like its own room either. If you guys want to, I feel like you guys can definitely change this into a nursery, but I've been building quite a lot of nurseries in my previous family home, so yeah, I just wanted to switch it up for this master bedroom, especially because the master bedroom isn't really that big anyway. And yeah, I just filled it up with a bunch of clothing that came from various packs. Unfortunately, I use the same clothing for every single one of the racks, so I used some that came from Dream Home Decorator as well as like the ones that came from High School Years. So I do apologize if you guys don't have that pack. I mean, you know, it's not really that big of a deal. You guys can just like replace it with all of the Dream Home Decorator if you guys do have that pack, which I assume a lot of people do have Dream Home Decorator in comparison to high school years. But yeah, moving on to the final bedroom. This is kind of just like a generic bedroom. I didn't really have any theme for this one in particular. It's just like a relatively huge bedroom, and I just filled it up with like the main generic stuff that you would necessarily need for anyone that lives in this bedroom, to be honest. And it just like has all the necessities such as like a desk, a TV, as well as like the dressing room obviously. And this one also has its own ensuite. But yeah, at the end of the video, I also provided a bunch of screenshots that I highly recommend that you guys should check out, so that you guys can get a bit more of a feel of the actual entire home. And you guys can also alternatively download it on the gallery if you guys want to check it out for yourselves. But yeah, that seems to be pretty much it for this entire speed build. Thank you very much for watching. If you guys liked the video, let me know what you guys think by leaving a like and subscribing. And I also love to know your thoughts on this build in the comment sections below. And I also have a bunch more videos like this on the channel if you guys want more. Yeah, I'll see you guys in my next video.